You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Last Ship After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Last Ship After Show.
I feel bad playing this song with you two because you're not technically Americans, you're just guests of our wonderful country. It's okay.
We still appreciate it.
You know what? McDreamy's an American, that's all that matters.
Yes.
I love how quickly you guys say yes to that. Who cares about what I think? It's all about McDreamy.
All I heard was McSteamy, and I was like, yes.
Oh, McSteamy. Yeah, what am I saying? I'm not even saying it right. Of course, it's McSteamy.
Dreamy, either works.
Either works for you guys? Okay, that's unfortunately what I thought. And unfortunately, I'm neither one of those guys. Hey, guys, welcome into The Last Ship After Show right here on AfterBuzzTV.com. Season 1, Episode 4, entitled We'll Get There, and eventually the three of us will get there. Unfortunately, we're going to get there without Monsi. She is out this week. She'll be back next week. But I'm Bobby DeMuro, as always, rounding you guys up. Next to me is Marina Santos and Charlotte Broadbent. Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing today?
Good, how are you?
Has everybody recovered from the AfterBuzz pool party, which was hot, by the way?
It was so much fun.
And by so much fun, Marina, you were like dancing on tables, kind of leading everybody to Charlotte. I'm just kidding.
That's a lie. We were beer pong champs, just throwing it out there.
Hey, okay, if you want to talk about it, we were. Yes, we won like 6 games in a row, and by we, I of course mean you carried the team, but...
By luck, but I'll take it.
Whatever. Hey,
Claim it, girl. Claim
it. This is the way
I've
you
been
become...
practicing for it.
This is the way you become an American. You have to be really cocky about winning stuff.
Oh, okay, I got it. I can do that.
Yeah, you're on the way.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And I won't even ask you about the World Cup. We'll just get right into the show.
Man.
Sorry, Brazil. All right, guys, as we get into the show, thank you so much for all the YouTube views, all the comments, and all the iTunes downloads. I think we're still in the top 10 literally every day of every week here on AfterBuzz with The Last Ship. So we know the show is popular. We know The Last Ship itself is popular, and we're hoping the after show lives up to it. So on behalf of these two, thank you guys for doing that. Keep it up. Let's jump into it today, guys.
Yes.
Let's start with character development. I was watching with one of our engineers and producers here at AfterBuzz, Marissa, who does a ton of different shows. She was just kind of hanging out in the viewing room with me watching it, and I said, come in, watch The Last Ship. You'll love it. It's action. It's Michael Bay. Like, stuff's going to get blown up, whatever. And she sees the first 3 or 4 scenes, and it's all flashbacks, character development, relationships. And she's looking at me, and she's like, are you lying? Like, where's all the explosions?
This isn't what you were talking about.
This is totally a departure from the first 3 episodes. And Charlotte, I got to ask you because you said it, so I'm curious. I thought this was the best episode. You don't. You didn't like it.
I didn't think it was because I think I love this show because of the action, because of the drama, because of the need for them to get the vaccine done and people are after them. Everyone wants to save people, and this episode was kind of not about that. Like, it was more about them stuck on the ship away from their families. It wasn't as much about trying to save the world. It was more about them, which I guess is kind of makes me shallow in some respect.
No.
I think you need that, though. I mean, I don't know about how you guys feel, but you have to have that character development. And we knew we were going to get it because they need legitimate reasons to do what they do. And we learn about Chandler's relationships and Slattery, and we'll talk about all that specifically in a second, but I think you need some of that. The only character development and kind of the only emotional tug we had seen up to this point was them listening on the radio to other people calling out for help. Yeah. And that's kind of an emotional, weird thing to have to hear other people just begging for help and not being able to do anything. So I personally thought this was the best episode for a lot of different reasons, but one of them is we finally see these relationships develop.
Yeah, you do need character development, but I feel like it was somewhat an overload. We got so much of so many different people. I wish it had kind of been a little more spread out, but that's just my opinion.
I like that it was different. My worry for this show was that every episode was going to be the same thing, and it was just going to be action and action and action, and we weren't going to see anything different. So I really liked that they actually went to a different direction and showed something different, and it still fit within the show. It wasn't something that was an absurd, completely different. It's still, they just threw some flashbacks in there, and focus more on the ship instead of the whole idea of the vaccine. So I really liked it.
I did like having a week off the Russians. I will say that.
Yep.
We can't do the Russians every week. That's going to go way too repetitive. So I'm glad that we're at least beyond them for a little while. But let's get into some of these relationships, and let's start with Chandler, because we see, of the backstories that we know so far before this episode, his we knew the most about. We had seen some other stuff from his wife and heard his story, but we see a lot with his kids, his son giving him the picture to take with him, his daughter giving him the bracelet that he was going to put in his pocket so it's over his heart, and his mom having all the feels, or his wife having all the feels when she's crying because her kids are saying that to him. So we learn a little bit about what his motivation is to get back home. Interestingly, though, with a lot of these guys, and Slattery is one of them, we need to humanize people like Slattery with their backstories because they're just soldiers to us. To me, Chandler has already been humanized. So I watch this and I feel it, but I'm also like, well, he's already a good guy for me. So maybe maybe it is a little overkill that we already knew this about him. We didn't need as much.
From episode 1, remember we talked about it, how he had an emotional side and he was nice to everyone. So I think, like you said, we already knew that about him. But I did like that they showed him with his family, because we've been talking a lot about him and Rachel and if something's going to happen. And that kind of destroyed it for me. It really brought him back to his family.
Yeah, I thought this is what I expected from him. He's just a suburban guy. When it comes to it, that's what he is. But this is just a job to him. And that just proved what I thought. What we've kind of known all along.
And I do like what you're saying, Marina, about family and about Rachel, because I know that there's a little bit of tension between the two of them, and I never thought that they were going to kind of get together. There's other romantic relationships there, but seeing this now and seeing his family, until maybe he knows for certain, until there's a conclusion of some kind in a grieving period or whatever, nothing's going to happen with Rachel simply because he's not on that wavelength.
No, absolutely. I mean, he's been on the radio a lot during this episode, just trying to find his family.
Yeah, but I think something may develop and something may happen to try and make him more of the bad guy and not so much of the goody captain that loves everyone, that tries to help everything, which is what a captain should be. But to kind of you never know what's going to happen when people are stranded. You don't know what's happened to your family, and I think there's going to be more to that.
I don't know. I might have to disagree. I think if something's going to happen, it's going to be with Mike. Slattery?
With Slattery? Yeah.
Slattery. Sorry, I couldn't remember his last name. So I think if there will be some drama or something going on, it's going to be with him and not with Chandler.
Well, let's talk Slattery.
I definitely think there's going to be drama there.
Let's talk Slattery, because Slattery mentions that he left badly with his wife, which first off would cause enough guilt if you guys weren't on speaking terms or whatever it was with his wife, and then she may be dead and you may never see her again and you may never have gotten the chance because you had radio silence on the boat. But now we also learn that his son died, and we don't know the story. We don't know what's behind it. His son was named Lucas, I guess. We don't really know what happened. I don't know if it was an accident or sickness or what, but something happened, and there was a point there where Chandler's kind of like, you couldn't do anything about it. You did what you could do. It's not your fault, sort of idea. So I'm wondering with Slattery now, what is his motivation to get back home, and what is his motivation to miss people? Because it's maybe a little bit different and a little more serious as even than Chandler.
That was such a cliche thing to say. There's nothing else you could have done. Yeah, because you got on a ship for 5 months without talking, where you couldn't talk to anyone. There's nothing else you could have done because that's what you had to do for your job. But really, is that what you had to do? No. You could have given up your job if it meant that much to, and not many people do give up their jobs for their family, but if it meant that much to you, there's more there's more you could have done.
Well, at this point now, knowing what happened in the world, maybe that's what he's thinking. Yeah. He says, my job is important. I have to go on these missions, but I could have been discharged. And I know serving your time in the military is a little bit different. You can't just leave when you want. But something could have happened, or I could have asked for a different duty or something. If my family is important, and the emotion I'm thinking Slattery has to be feeling is total regret.
Yeah, and I mean, even I wouldn't be able to leave for 5 months knowing that I'm not on speaking terms with my loved one, or my son just died. That I just wouldn't be able to deal with that. And obviously that's why he comes off so harsh and so rough, because he just doesn't, that's just the way he's had to train himself to be because of what he has had to deal with.
I mean, I think they never expect something like this would happen when they're leaving and they're, going on missions and they're going to be gone for, 5, 8 months, years. But I think he's feeling a lot of guilt. He left in bad terms with his wife, and I think that's really killing him, and that's why he's he has that grudge, and he's, you know, he wish he could have done something different.
And maybe to me, that guilt, that regret is why he lashes out a little bit and does what he does. Because a lot like Chandler and a lot like a lot of these people on this ship, the orders week in and week out, as we get deeper and deeper into this show, the orders and the hierarchy is going to matter less and less and less. And yeah, you want to keep under Chandler, and Chandler's proven himself to be a very capable captain who makes some risky decisions we'll talk about today, but a very capable captain, a very caring captain with how he's caring for the people around him. But even so, when you get more and more desperate, the hierarchy kind of, you know, grays out and is not black and white because the government may not exist anymore, so who cares? And you want to go home. People like Slattery, who already have that regret and that guilt inside, may start really acting out.
Right.
And I would hope so for the show, right?
Yeah, and I think it will, and I think this is just only part of what we're going to be told about him, and it's going to more and more is going to come out. But I can totally see now why he's so hard. I totally see it.
Yeah, he's just sad. It's probably the way he's dealing with it, right? Instead of being just sad and letting it out, he's toughened up, and he's putting it on other people, and he's trying to, you know, play hard, which, you know, everybody deals differently, but I think it's going to create some drama in the next few episodes.
Speaking of drama, relationship number 3 now to talk about is our friend Quincy and Rachel Scott. First thing about Rachel, it sounds like, well, Quincy left a family at home, Chandler left a family, Slattery left something of a family with whatever's going on. Rachel left a hookup buddy?
That flies in every now and again.
Every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks or 2
I'm
months.
telling you guys,
yeah.
this sounds like a wonderful relationship. Sign me up. Perfect.
If anybody wants to sign up, just tweet at Bobby.
Yeah, tweet at Bobby DeMuro. If you're in the LA area or flying here once every 2 weeks, tweet at Bobby DeMuro. And you're a woman. Let's make that be very clear. Anyways, as I completely lose my train of thought. So we know that Rachel, and I think we were kind of led to believe this anyways because of how focused she is. She's a total workaholic. But she says to Quincy, you don't know what I've left behind. Which, you're right, Rachel, we don't. So please tell us on a future show. Who knows? Maybe she left something significant behind too.
I think they will. I wonder if, you know, every few episodes they'll try to focus on somebody. Like today, it was Chandler and his family, and obviously there's a lot of background with Rachel based on what she said. You know, you don't know what I went through, and you don't know my pain, so don't say anything. So I think there is a lot of history in her past that we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I think, and Rachel Scott I don't know who plays her, but reminds me of Sandra Bullock.
Rona Mitra.
And I think Sandra Bullock, just the way that Sandra Bullock has always went, the people she plays, like she's kind of the one that doesn't really have a significant other, plays hard to get. She's kind of the guy's guy. She puts work before anything else, and that's exactly what Rachel Scott does. And I think that's why she doesn't really have, I can see that she just has somebody that kind of comes in every 2 weeks, and maybe to her it's more than it is to him, or maybe the other way around. I think it could be the other way around, that the guy maybe wants more and she doesn't, because she's so work driven. But Quincy kind of took a really weird turn.
Quincy took a real weird turn. One thing about Rachel that just clicked on me when you were talking about her with being work driven, before we talk about Quincy, is when you go to the hospital, or if you've ever had like surgery or something, you know, you want your doctor or your surgeon or your medical professional to be removed from the situation emotionally. You don't want, you know, if your husband or wife's a doctor, you're not going to have them operate on you because they're not removed emotionally. And so maybe Rachel is the perfect person for the vaccine, for all the medical stuff, because emotionally she cares very differently than Quincy, who we know is a hothead, or anybody else who has specific people in mind. And what we've seen so far of Rachel is she's just kind of like, I'm trying to develop the vaccine. Like, I'm trying to solve this, not for one person, not for one emotional need, but this is what I do, this is what I love to do, and this is a challenge. And to me, that's a good thing. As lonely as her personal life may or may not be, it's a good thing for literally the world, because she can remove herself and her own investment emotionally and just look at the facts, the science.
Definitely. And the way that when the vaccine was being put into the water, you'd think it was something, and yes, it's very valuable, but you would think it was something a lot more valuable to her that she was potentially losing than a vaccine. Just from the way that she was, I mean, sweating and just shaking. She was just so scared for the vaccine. And I get it, it's a lot of hard work, but I feel like there was some correlation that means the most to her, whereas to other people it's family.
Yeah.
I think she just has a lot of weight on her shoulders because there's nobody else that can do what she does.
Apparently
Yeah.
on the Russian ship there is.
Well, he
Or there's
was
something
struggling.
that
yeah.
she needs.
We know that the person who can't do what she does is Quincy, though.
Right.
Yes.
This guy, although he did help with sequencing and stuff, they needed Quincy in this episode to help with things that she couldn't do. But he's also a very, very kind of hot-headed guy, and you can't blame him because he has family issues. But guess what? Everybody else on that damn ship has family
Yeah.
issues. So get it together, man. I know he's not a soldier, he's not a sailor, so he's a little bit different than them. But wrong guy to take on the mission.
Yeah, he went cuckoo.
Yeah.
Like,
he was
went
too emotional.
crazy. I don't know why he was lashing out at Rachel. I mean, she really hasn't done anything to him. He was the one that did him to himself. And really, Rachel was being nice to him when he was trying to take off the cap with the virus and to kill everyone in the ship. So he just went crazy this episode.
Yeah, it was very cheap on his part to call her selfish and say she was just doing what she was doing to get attention and to be famous, when, you know, the truth is she's trying to save the world.
But is that the truth? Maybe there is some... I mean, they've worked together for 10 years. So obviously he knows her. So I think there's some truth to what he's saying. I don't think it's exactly true that she's selfish and all she wants is the fame. I don't think the fame is really what she cares about because everyone's dead.
Yeah, I would
So
say,
how is she going to get
who
famous?
would you be famous to?
Exactly.
AfterBuzz TV would be no more. Like, everything is gone. I don't know who'd be famous. But I guess he understands maybe her motivations a little bit differently. And maybe that's right. But it's still a little risky. And it's very risky for them to have released him and let him help her and leave him from that galley room that he was in or whatever.
And the guards went out.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe the guards should stay.
And it surprised me that they also let him negotiate. You know,
Well,
instead of just demanding him to do something.
I think that was a conscious decision to show how compassionate Chandler is.
True.
And Quincy didn't ask for anything crazy. He asked to play chess, and he asked for something else, and now I've forgotten what it was.
Sunlight, yeah.
So he asked for sunlight, he asked to play chess, and then they bring in Bacon, that chess guy, who's a jerk to him, which I think is kind of like, you know, hey, dude, we're going to give you what you want, but not really well. You're just going to do whatever. But I think this is Chandler saying, go along to get along. This is what a good leader does. You can't be too vindictive, because if you're too vindictive, you start doing what the Russian leader did, which is you start killing your own guys. And if you do that too much, you know, if you keel haul Quincy like they mentioned doing and stick him under the boat, he's dead. And then what happens with the next person who misbehaves and the next, and then you're down a lot of people. So.
And I think that was the final straw. I mean, they couldn't really do anything else but negotiate with him. Or he wasn't going to do it.
Even though, ironically, in a way, Quincy was kind of terrorizing the ship with what he was holding back and what he was waiting for with Rachel. And what, 1 or 2 episodes ago, Chandler said verbatim on the show, we don't negotiate with terrorists, and everybody blew up, you know, the other terrorists. And he's negotiating with, in a way, a terrorist here. I'm just saying.
That is true.
Good point.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
I'm just saying.
But I think he just didn't have a way out. You know, like Rachel needed Quincy to help her, and there's nobody else that can do it. So, gotta take one for the team.
And Rachel got so hot-headed, and he even said it. He's like, you gotta calm down, or whatever he said to her when she left. And then he had to go in and play. She played bad cop, and he played good cop. And then Slattery came in and played kind of dirty, good, bad, threatening cop, whatever.
Kind of
Mind games.
Yeah, kind of what I think his character is.
Yeah.
So it worked out to be the characters that they've all kind of portrayed.
And that's another thing we learn about Slattery. It hasn't been significant yet, but he was a homicide detective in Chicago. So that's an interesting thing as we learn more about his life.
Again, you have to be hard to be a homicide detective.
Yeah.
What you're going through, what you're seeing, you have to put up a slate. Like, you can't show emotions. You can't be seen to have it affect you. So he's used to that.
I wonder what made him want to leave Chicago and get in the Navy.
I wondered the same thing, because just from a logistical perspective, unless he had been in the Navy before and had been discharged or whatever, he's not a lowly sailor in the ranks. He's second in command on a major ship on major missions. You don't just kind of like leave homicide in 2012 and achieve this in 2013. So I wonder what that story is, how long ago, what was the impetus for leaving. Maybe he'd been a sailor in his past. I don't know if any of it matters, but I just would kind of like to know some of their literal backstories to kind of fill out in my head what's going on, and that's one of the things. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find out. I'm sure there's going to be another episode like this in maybe 3 episodes time.
Yeah. So you have two blow up episodes and one meaningful, and two blow up.
Balance it out.
something like
Balance it out.
All right, I can deal with that. Hey, speaking of blow ups, though, what about our last kind of big relationship to talk about? Well, I guess we got two more, but one of them is Danny and Lieutenant Foster. His on again, off again, I love you, leave me alone girlfriend.
Which, thanks for tweeting that the other day, last week,
Good
and
hashtag,
starting
right?
the hashtag.
It's too long. We had to think of a better hashtag. It's just too long. I love you. Was I love you, leave me alone?
I love you, but you have to leave me alone. Yeah,
That's
something
so
like
Way
that.
too long.
Yeah,
Wow.
real long.
Way too long. I'm not retweeting that. It's way too long. But we see Danny today, and Danny obviously struggling. And the interesting thing with this, and thank goodness for Tex Nolan, we need somebody who is brings a little levity and is kind of comic, relief or whatever. And he's doing that in spades, and he's kind of hitting on Foster and saying, well, she's enlisted, but I'm not, or whatever, and gets the message. And then later on, Tex sees that Danny's interested in her. But Danny struggles with that. Danny struggles with Tex being interested in Foster, and then he really struggles with that other guy on the beach party at the end of the episode, not doing anything inappropriate, but just Danny seeing them together was enough for him to be like, I made a mistake.
I mean, I think he was already too emotional attached to leave the relationship. I think I understand why he did it last episode. It's very hard to work with someone that you love in circumstances where you're both in danger.
And you're
A
having
lot.
to sneak around.
Right.
And you're on a ship. You can't go anywhere else. You're
Exactly.
in a finite space.
Yeah. But I think he's too far into this relationship, and now it's too late. And instead of just staying together, he's just suffering even more, because if she dies, he's still gonna suffer the same way whether they're together or not.
Well, yeah, because we know he's an emotional person, but it's just a typical guy. You don't know what you got till you lost it.
Are you serious? Really?
Typical guy. Typical
Really?
guy.
Oh.
Sounds like a girl who's been scorned a time or two, and this is just what she tells herself to help her out.
Hey. But it's true. A lot of guys don't know what they have until they've lost it. And I think it's clear that he's feeling that now when he sees a Tex wanting to hit on her and saying that she's hot, gotta get something on the ship. And then the other guy, when they're on the island, he's like, damn, what did I do?
See, but I think he knew what he had. I don't think he took her for granted. I think he was trying to protect her in a way, and if something happened to him, she wouldn't suffer as much. I don't think he was being, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Like regretful or being too over the top, emotional?
Yeah. I don't think he did that because he was being selfish or because he didn't love her or he didn't want the best for her. I think he thought he was doing the right thing, but in the end, it's really not. It's not helping the cause. They're just now being sad on the corner on the ship and seeing each other, and it's very uncomfortable.
And this is why you don't date at work. We said it a couple weeks ago, but especially in this situation, it's like in middle school when you have like a middle school relationship, like a junior high relationship, and you're like 12 and you don't actually have a relationship. You just like go to the dance and like not dance together. You know how that goes. And then you like something happens and you like break up, quote unquote. But then you have to see that person and it's agonizing. And that's a huge deal when you're 12. Now add all the actual emotions of being an adult in a situation like this. You're in a finite space that you can't leave. And then every time Foster talks to another man for any purpose, you don't know. If you still feel that way about her, you're going to question it and not go maybe into a jealous rage or something, and she's not doing anything wrong by talking to other people, but you don't know because of how you feel about her, and it's got to be agonizing if you're Danny. So this dude is going to have all the terrible feelings for the next 6 episodes.
Yeah, and this is a couple that I would like to know their backstory.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if they're in love, then they must have been dating for a while. You don't just fall in love in 2 weeks or a couple months that they've been on the ship. Surely they were dating. Well, maybe they weren't dating. Were they dating before they were on the ship and then they got put onto this mission together and they were surprised that they were together? Like, what's the backstory?
I would like to know it too, how they got together, if it was on the ship or not. But at the same time, 4 or 5 months, a long time.
Yeah.
But to be sneaking around and they can't hang out and get to know each other.
But that's what's exciting.
Have you ever heard of Romeo and Juliet, man? Goodness, this is just a modern day, nautical Romeo and Juliet.
You
That's all it
you
is.
want what you can't get.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's exciting for them to be sneaking around.
Love lessons here on the last ship. You want what you can't get, and you don't know what you've got until it's
you
gone.
lost it.
Okay, I like that. Last relationship to talk about, and then we will move on to actually what happened kind of in the episode and run down more of the logistical stuff. But the last interesting thing is Jeter. Jeter comes out of nowhere, talks on the deck, on whatever you want to call it, on the deck of the ship, to Chandler about the ship, and then about Jeter's own accident, which you probably think this was overdone if you said the episode was a little overdone, Charlotte. But I thought this was the most epic, like, inspirational speech since, like, literally since Independence Day, with Bill Pullman being president, talking about the F-16s, you know, we will not go quietly, like one of those speeches. This was like one of those speeches. Awesome.
Well, Chandler had a really good speech a few episodes ago, remember? When they found out about the vaccine and he gave the and that's when you brought up the Independence Day. But I agree, it was pretty epic. It was kind of emotional. They had a moment.
And it wasn't like a speech, it was just a one-on-one moment. So yeah, this would have been a little bit different, but it was still pretty epic.
It was an encouragement, which was nice. I think he was doubting himself. Chandler was doubting himself for a while. He wasn't sure what to do. They hadn't drank water in over 2 days. You know, people were going down and they couldn't move. They couldn't do anything. So I think he was feeling a little like a failure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
well, he didn't have a plan. And I think he said to him, he's like, so what's your vision? And Chandler said, I don't have one, which he needed some upping and he needed some encouragement for that time. And that worked.
No, and it did work. And Jeter, one of his big messages that I took away is the idea of keep listening. Because Jeter kind of said, it was my fault for the accident. I killed my wife and girls. I died 7 times in the hospital and they brought me back. I assume that's what coded means. I coded 7 times in the hospital and they brought me back. And then he kind of says, and I thought I came back for a purpose. I didn't know. I was hoping I came back for a purpose, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm here and I know I've come back for a purpose. You are our leader. We follow you. And he kept saying, keep listening. Yeah. Because Chandler didn't have a lot of confidence at this point, and I think Jeter knew that, and hence the pep talk in the first place. But he knew it in the sense of Chandler wasn't totally in control of the situation. He was just trying to dictate what he wanted to happen. And Jeter's point was somebody else is in control of the situation. And he says it. He even said whether it's God or something else. Yeah. He's kind of like, whatever it is, somebody's in control of this. Keep listening and doing what they...
And we've learned that he's also the religious one on the boat, right? He's always the one who's preaching and reading the Bible. So it makes it seem when he says, keep listening, it's like, keep listening. Like, God will help you. Something will come. You will know what to do. You're the leader.
Yeah, and it was another great speech when he had everyone in the circle and he was reading the Bible to them. And I'm not religious, but I was like, wow, this is exactly what they needed.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Although there is no proselytizing in the American military system, and a lot of people have gotten into trouble for that before, although where's the system nowadays? Where's the government?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of free all for himself. So interesting stuff. And I suppose technically if you're a religion scholar and you want to comment on this, if you freely choose to go to a prayer circle, you're allowed to do that. Proselytizing is more, you can't force people into doing that.
Right.
But it was an interesting scene and kind of an interesting dichotomy with using religion in that scene, because we hadn't seen that a lot before. We've seen parts of it with Jeter just to establish him, but we hadn't seen an over-the-top, overarching religious theme yet in the show. And to quote from the Bible specifically with Moses is like, okay, now we're really talking.
And there wasn't everybody there, so it was obviously just
it was just a few, a group.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get to what actually happened in the show. We kind of run down relationships. Obviously, we've never taken this much time on relationships on any show so far because we haven't needed to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to do that. So not as much, obviously, in the show, but basically, the gist of this episode is everything goes wrong again.
Of course.
Imagine that. But it's not opponents, it's not adversaries, it's power and generators.
Right.
Which I'm kind of glad it happened. You know, they've been on the ocean for over 5 months now. And nothing had happened. The ship is perfect, and you know they barely had fuel until last episode. No, 2 ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that was something wrong. You know, the ship can't last forever. You know, and it's gonna start breaking, and they're gonna have to deal with issues. So I thought it was very interesting that they actually did that, and they took a whole episode for it.
Yeah, I agree. And it was something along the idea of they make it out of Gitmo safely. Everything's kind of working out for the ship. This is kind of the episode where you say, okay, the Russians are gone. We haven't gone to the next island yet. So what else can happen? Oh, it's got to be an internal problem, you know? And this is an idea for Chung. Chung in this episode, kind of the assistant engineer guy, really comes of age because the top lady is down with illness or whatever, and he really comes of age and kind of talk about believing in yourself. Chandler didn't really believe in what he was doing while it was going on, and he wasn't sure. Neither did Chung. Chung had no belief in himself until the end when it worked out, and now hopefully he's learned and grown himself.
And is everything fixed? Because I didn't get the idea that everything was fixed. I think there still may be continuing problems because generators don't just fix themselves.
Well, I think what was going on was it was kind of two problems in one. The engines had died, the generators were going out and were blowing out because of that, and everything had overheated, and they needed 7 days to fix the engines. But the problem is in those 7 days they were running out of water. So they fixed problem number one by getting water by going to this island. And then problem number two is the engines, which I took to mean they have the tools and stuff to fix them. It would just take time. And while they're now camped on that island, they can fix everything. And theoretically, it'd be relatively back to normal.
Yeah, and I think one of the main problems was the fact that when they were in Gitmo, they couldn't get the water because they didn't know if it was contaminated or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had, and obviously they had kind of no idea what would happen after Gitmo. Their priority was to get out, so they couldn't really plan ahead.
Yeah.
Like they probably would have wanted to do that. So we'll see what happens next episode with that. But I would imagine, at least for the time being, the ship problems are probably behind them. I would hope.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have to, like you said, it'll take a few days. And I think based on what we saw in the preview, they're gonna be there for a little bit.
Or go to a separate island. I took it as a separate island.
It was a separate,
I
okay.
took it as a separate island too, because that's so isolated. The island that they were on, it's tiny.
I mean, we really didn't see that much. We just saw that beach scene, so I don't...
Just from the onlook.
Yeah, from the onlook, looked small.
So let's talk about that beach party scene.
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny. And I thought it was funny because they look like they're partying. They had solo cups. Everybody's having a good time. They're not drinking beer. Everybody's drinking
coconut water.
They're all drinking water, and they're like really happy about drinking water, and they're chugging, and they're doing whatever. And you look at that thing, and you're like, oh, this is a cool beach party. You're like, oh, no, it's not. They're not on leave. I mean, they're technically on shore leave, but this is water. They're trying to... It's a funny dichotomy of like, this is what sailors do. When they get on leave, they go home, they go party, they drink, they get on land. They're doing that, but it's not alcohol.
It must be a weird feeling for them because for that couple hours, however long they were there, doing that, having fun, they're able to have fun, not think about anything, relax, get water, rehydrate, but then they have to go back on the ship and realize that this is still reality. Yeah. We're still on a mission, but it must have been strange because I wouldn't have been able to click off and then just relax. But
I mean, I don't know if necessarily they clicked off, but I think they needed a break, after the last few days, and no water and the pressure they were under. It was good for them to just like, okay, I can take a breath.
Yeah. And they didn't get a break going into Gitmo. No. They didn't get a break coming out of Gitmo. No. So they needed one.
Yeah, it's been what, months that they've been on the ocean and they haven't had a break. So I think that was good for them, and that's gonna bring them back and with more energy and wanting to do more and go forward with their mission. But it was interesting. I like the song. I forget. Yeah, it was a great song. She had a beautiful voice. I don't remember her name.
Nothing like, I don't know if you've ever known her name. Nothing like just sailors just belting out with perfect voices.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly, right. I was like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say a guitar player and a singer, like,
of course,
it's great.
Yeah, but I guess if you're on a ship for 5 months, somebody brings their guitar, so it's okay. I'll take it. Whatever. That's fine. What about Rachel Scott? Not her relationships, but her in the show today. So she has a vaccine prototype. She's got the primordial sample, she's got the Egyptian sample, and now she thinks she has a prototype of the vaccine. So we'll obviously find out if she does, but Quincy has sequenced it for her. I guess we have nobody to compare her to besides that Russian scientist or the Swedish Scandinavian scientist employed by Russia, by his own will or not. Do we think she has the vaccine prototype? Is she as good as she says she is, or is there something else going on here? Like, is she that close to saving the world?
I don't think right now she has it. I think she will, but right now I don't think she does.
Yeah, I think it's not perfect yet. I think they're gonna do some tests with monkeys, and
they do need to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah, they're gonna go to Costa Rica, and something's not gonna be perfect, because that'll be too easy, right? First season, they figure it out, and it's done. Like, what is next?
I don't know what is next.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It can't happen. Yeah.
I don't think she's got it quite right yet, and I think she's gonna need more of Quincy, and I think there's gonna be more to it.
And she did, and I know you talked about this with her relationship a little bit, but she did get very agitated when they had to put that thing in the water. Kind of ingenious to do that, to keep it cool, just to send it down in the water to keep it cool. But she got very, very, very agitated about that because all of her work would have been lost, everything would have been destroyed, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think if that had happened, I know it didn't, so there's no point in speculating and debating it, but if that had happened and she loses the vaccine and prototype and stuff, where do you go from there? Do you just go to the uninhabited island and hang out? I mean, what would you do if you're on that ship? You lose the vaccine trying to cool it off. What's the next step? I know it worked out.
If
but
they
what
had,
if it doesn't?
if they had no more resources, that would be the end, right? It would be.
Yeah.
I mean, they could procreate. Well,
Just start a new, generation of people. And
but they're in a small island. What they're gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's not even smart.
They're gonna run out of resources
Yeah.
eventually.
Well, and this is why we need, and that's, I guess why I'm getting at this is why we need more backstory for these people, because I need specific reasons why they need to go home. So far, we've seen like, oh, gee, I hope my family's still alive, which is serious and terrible. But if the virus is as bad as it is, your family's probably not still alive.
Yeah.
You know, almost no one's still alive. So if it were me and the government has disappeared, you're not hearing anything from anybody, you're not doing whatever, at some point you kind of got to scratch your head and ask a hard question and say, this is an uninhabited island. It's theoretically got coconuts and other stuff we could probably eat. Can we stay here for a while, wait for the thing to blow over, and repopulate the planet as a group? Which I know is, a lot of people say, well, that's the cowardly thing to do. You're the U.S. Navy, you've got a mission, blah, blah, blah. You're not the Navy anymore. You're a ship in the water. Nothing
just trying
exists.
to survive.
Yeah. And I respect that people want to go home to their families, but at what point do you have to face facts and say, my family's dead, your family's dead, we've kind of known it from the beginning. Do we want to kill another couple hundred people on the ship, or do we at least want to wait till it blows over and start over?
I think that's where the radio comes in, right? The radio is keeping them grounded.
Good call.
And, while they're listening to those people crying for help, they're going to keep going at it and they want to go back. But I think if one day they turn the radio on and they don't hear anything, then maybe that's what they'll do.
Damn you for making an argument better than mine.
Winning.
Marina wins everything now. I don't know what you're doing, but that was a great call. The radio will definitely keep them in tune and give them something a little weird and a little more specific. Those radio scenes are creepy. It would be creepy to hear people, to know you can't respond, to not be able to do anything. People are in distress, and you're just like almost a voyeur kind of listening to. That's
it's
weird.
Miserable. Why?
Yeah.
I feel like it's torture listening to them.
I agree.
Well, that's Chandler. Remember at the end of the show when Rachel comes in and thanks Chandler and they have that kind of powwow while everybody else is celebrating off the ship. Chandler is sitting there alone listening to the radio while everybody else is mission accomplished, we did well. And I know Chandler went down and gave Chung pineapple or whatever it was and kind of had a good conversation. But then Chandler goes and subjects himself to this torture of listening to the radio because he's trying to listen for his wife.
Yeah, because I
obviously.
think he's just waiting and
Yeah.
hoping that he's gonna, because they have the ability to be able to do that. So the fact that they haven't, I think, is scaring him.
And it's a very emotional episode for him because it's also his anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, in his mind, and that's why he's trying so hard to get in touch with his wife, and doubting, whether they're alive or not.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I have so many predictions. I want to get to them. Do we have any news first, though?
I don't think so.
I have something
cool.
very small.
Do
but I
it.
don't know.
No, let's run it. Let's run some news and gossip, Ben.
All right.
AfterBuzz TV News.
We'll make it huge.
It's not even that exciting, but we'll try.
All right, Marina, what you got?
All right. According to comingsoon.net, TNT is teaming up with Crave Online to rock Comic-Con this year with a Friday night party celebrating The Last Ship. They're going to have MGMT performing, and they're also going to have a panel with all of the stars there
Oh, wow.
with a Q&A.
That's
So,
pretty... Well,
yeah.
it's San Diego, right? Let's go down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
I mean, well, hold on, girls. I got to ask. I mean, if McSteamy's going to be there, you're like a 2.5 hour drive away from McSteamy.
That's nothing.
That's nothing.
We'll be there.
Oh, Lord. You guys would both enlist in the Navy if McSteamy were actually in the Navy. So 2.5 hour drive, San Diego, nothing. I'll be interested to see what they do about something like Last Ship, because so much of Comic-Con, it's not just, comics and superheroes anymore, but it's a lot of science fiction, it's a lot of adventure, it's a lot of fantasy stuff. And The Last Ship, while it's adventurous, doesn't totally fit.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't really fit into the Comic-Con scene. So I'm interested, like you said, to see how they do fit it into that.
Although it is Michael Bay of Transformers
Right.
fame, so maybe there's something else there. And
Yeah.
I have no doubt how they got in, but I'm just interested to see what the crossover is between kind of hardcore Comic-Con people and sort of Last Ship.
Well, I
fans.
think that's why they're doing a party, because it's a good way to get away with it at Comic-Con. Oh, we'll just throw a party, have somebody famous perform, and people are gonna, want to see it.
Yeah, and Comic-Con today, just like South by Southwest in Texas, is very different than it was 15 and 20 years ago. It was such a niche event, even just a couple of years ago, and it's become so mainstream that you're going to see more kind of crossover like this, and you already have, and you're going to see musical acts and stuff like that. So that'll be cool. What day is that? How soon is that?
I think
Did it say?
it is. Let's take a look. July 24th to the 27th, so that's very
Real
soon.
soon. Like
So
10
it'll
days
be
away.
so our next episode we won't be able to do it, but maybe 2 weeks from now we'll have to recap what that Q&A was, because it's going online somewhere, so we'll have to check that out
Absolutely.
and see what they said. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested too, not just with the cast to do Q&A, but also if they have graphics people or a producer or a director to talk about sort of CGI and production on a lot of the fight scenes and the explosion scenes. I think that'd be
I
interesting.
know. I'd
Yeah.
love to see how all of that is done, because it's so well done. You can't tell a lot of it's computerized, and they're doing a really good job so far.
Yeah, I like it a lot. All right, well, let's get to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
The flashing lights are like
I know.
disorienting a little bit, I think it's because we're still a little tipsy from the party on. No, I'm just kidding. We're fine. All right, predictions, guys. I've got a really good one, but I don't want to go first if y'all are. I don't want to take your thunder, anybody.
You can go ahead for my call.
Oh man, I really hadn't thought about it that much. I will say this. I think Chandler is gonna get through to his family.
Oh, Marina.
Was that your prediction?
That was my prediction. That he's going to sit on the radio and that he's going to hear his wife's. Damn it.
winning again.
You guys really think that?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. They've shown too many people too many times listening to the radio,
Right.
and now we've seen Chandler at least twice listening to the radio, and it's the rule of 3 in film and television. So if it's the third time or somewhere else, he is gonna get through to somebody he knows, or he's gonna make a mistake. Somebody's gonna be in distress, and because he's so loyal and helpful and whatever, even though he ordered everybody else not to communicate, he will have a weak moment, pick up the thing, and he will communicate with somebody. Maybe it's not his wife, but he'll communicate with somebody, he'll open that line, and then they've got to deal with it.
I think that's more going to be what happens, and they're going to have to deal with the repercussions of then someone else knowing where they're located. And I think at some point, somebody is going to get infected.
On the
I
ship.
think,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. I don't know if it'll be this episode or next episode, but obviously we see that they're going to come into contact with some people.
You just blew my mind. How about this? Who deals with the vaccine every day and could get affected? Or who deals with the virus every day and could get infected?
Quincy,
And
Rachel.
So why doesn't Rachel get infected with the virus and have to use her own vaccine on herself? And we've got
Oh,
ourselves a
that'd be
test subject.
good.
We don't need any more monkeys in Costa Rica. We've got ourselves our own, primate of sorts in Rachel herself.
That
I
would
don't
be
think
good.
that's going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to have fun,
maybe,
man.
maybe a
bubble.
few episodes from now.
I'm trying to outguess Michael Bay here. Come on, what are you doing to me?
That would be good though.
Oh man. All right.
It
Well,
would be risky. That
yeah.
would have us on the edge of our seats.
that's the thing.
for
We'd
sure.
find out how good Rachel is with
Yeah.
the vaccine and with all this stuff, and if she's gutsy enough to test it on herself.
Yeah.
And one other prediction, I think Danny and Foster, there's going to be keep having tension between them, but I think there's going to be a hot make-out session.
A hot makeout session. You heard it here. That's very specific. Not like a reconciliation or they'll get back to you. They're gonna have a hot
I think it's
makeout
gonna be.
session.
I think it's gonna be. They're gonna be. Fighting a little bit here and there, and then when it happens, it's gonna be like very passionate. Yeah.
All right, a little breakup and makeup.
Yeah.
I still think Slattery is a bad guy, because there was at one point when Chandler said, "See, I knew piece of cake," and Slattery looked at him and said, "Never doubted it." And the look that Slattery had in his eyes when Chandler walked away was vicious. personally, I think.
Was it vicious, or was it just so dehydrated that he was almost about to die?
I think it was vicious. But maybe I've got the wrong impression of him, and it's his hot exterior from what we're learning that's making me think that. But I still think there's going to be tension there.
And I guess my last prediction, Tex Nolan, he is a loose cannon, and I don't think, now that we've seen him a couple times, I don't think he's a mole or he's evil or anything. I think we can trust him in one sense, but we cannot trust him because he's going to screw something up and get everybody into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Agreed.
And he cannot get out of it on his own. He's too dumb and gets himself into it, and it's going to affect the whole ship. And maybe he is the one who brings the virus on board in some way. Maybe he does something stupid or whatever. So.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Poor
agree.
Tex.
He's not as worried as everybody else.
I know, he's hanging out. He doesn't care.
He's just playing
Yeah.
around.
Just having fun.
Something's weird about that, Tex Nolan.
But I like that because he's bringing some light.
And we need him for that.
Lights and
We definitely need him for that. All right, guys, social media links. What else is going on? Charlotte, where can we find you?
CharlotteB_TV on Twitter and Instagram, and CharlotteBroadbentTV.com.
CharlotteBroadbentTV.com. I'll go visit that website right now.
you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rina Brazil.
Rina Brazil. Oh, yeah, we can't talk about the World Cup around you. It's okay. 7-0. You can find me on Twitter at Bobby DeMuro, on Instagram at Mr. Bobby DeMuro. That's it on Last Ship this week, guys. We'll see you next week. And I don't want to announce it too much or tease it, but we do have a special guest who is on the Last Ship. They're going to be in AfterBuzz TV studios with us next week. Not going to tell you who it is. You got to watch to find out. See you then.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.